Would God have given the commandment if the people of Israel had lived according to his will? Now here's the twist. Some preachers and theologians simplified Paul's message and went further by teaching, the law is a mirror, it only shows you your dirt but cannot clean it. Others even say, the law is the problem because it makes people guilty, but that's actually their interpretation, not Paul's exact words. Paul respected the law, but he wanted people to see that the law by itself couldn't save, only Christ could. But come to think of it, Paul's view that the law cannot save is not true because history itself proves otherwise. Men like Elijah, Elisha, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego lived by the law, and it was that obedience that saved them from death, corruption, and compromise. Why did obeying the law deliver the 3 Hebrew boys from the furnace? Why did Daniel's obedience to the law, praying daily, eating clean food, give him favor and protection? Joseph is another clear proof against Paul's line that the law cannot save. Think about it. Joseph was tempted by Potiphar's wife. If he had fallen, he would have broken God's law. Thou shalt not commit adultery. His obedience to the law saved him. It preserved his destiny, kept him from disgrace, and eventually led him to the throne in Egypt. If Joseph had ignored the law, no amount of grace would have put him where God destined him to be. Oh, the law saved Joseph. Grace may forgive, but law preserves. Without law, even grace loses meaning. So in my perspective, Paul's statement is incomplete, even misleading. The law is not weak. It is the foundation of righteousness. Without it, there is no purity, no discipline, and no true obedience to God. Through the law comes knowledge of sin. They said sin uses the law as an opportunity. The more the law says don't do it, the more sin inside us wants to do it. They said commandment was meant to bring life, but because of sin, it ended up bringing death. In the end, sin tricked Paul and all of us. It used the law against him, deceived him, and brought destruction. But listen, the law itself is not a trap. Because men like Moses, Elijah, Elisha, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, Daniel, and many others lived under the law and still walked faithfully with God. Sin did not take advantage of them in the way Paul describes, because they had strong faith and obedience. So sin only takes advantage of those who are weak, careless, or rebellious in heart. The law was given because people's hearts were drifting far from God. Some obeyed, like the prophets and faithful ones. Others disobeyed. Sin takes advantage of the weak, but not of those who hold firm to God. The law is not weakness itself. The weakness is in people who refuse to follow it. So pay attention, anyone who preach against this is weak inside. Look carefully at that story of Sodom and Gomorrah. God himself tied the survival of the city to whether people were living by his law. If I find 10 righteous, I will not destroy it. Abraham was bold enough to stand before God and negotiate. That boldness came because he walked in righteousness, law-keeping. If the people had been living according to the law itself is enough to direct their hearts. Preachers wouldn't have to keep reminding people don't commit adultery. Law can preserve. It could have preserved Sodom if even 10 obeyed. Law is a crown, because those who walk in it gain the honor of standing before God like Abraham, face to face. Grace forgives when you fall, but not the crown of glory. That's why Abraham was called the friend of God, not because he lived carelessly, but because